When I was back in the United States, I felt like I was a pretty normal size, not too fat, but then my mindset changed quite a bit when I got here to China. I realized that everybody around me is so healthy. I rarely see anybody overweight, so I looked up the obesity rates for the US and China, and the results are quite shocking. The US ranked 14 at 36.47%. China, on the other hand, ranked 145 at 6.11%. Wow, those are pretty shocking numbers right there. Now this begs the question, of course, of why are the Chinese so thin and why are Americans so fat? So there are three different factors that all play a role or an effect on one another. The first is environment, which includes food, transportation, and society. Next is habits that are developed from a young age, which comes from the way children are raised, both by parents and by the school systems. And last but not least are just everyday decisions or choices, whether subconscious or conscious decisions made. Now let's jump into the first main reason, sugar. So get this, Americans have 17 teaspoons on average per day. That's almost double the recommended amount. The sugar story, however, here in China is completely different. I can certainly attest to that. But I want to first share a story about Oreos and how Oreos here are very different than in the US. So the Kraft company first launched Oreos in 1996 here in China, but they almost pulled out of the market because they weren't having like any success. Before actually pulling out of the market, they decided to research again and developed 20 different prototypes of reduced sugar Oreos. Eventually, they found the perfect combination of a reduced sugar Oreo that the consumers love. So my wife actually on her social media accounts posted a similar video just about Oreos and how they taste less sweet here compared to the United States. One of the most common comments that came from some of our fans, they would say that the best thing about treats is that they are not too sweet. So in other words, if they're too sweet, then they don't like them at all. And they feel like it's just not comfortable, they'll get a headache or want to even throw up. There were still even some that commented saying that they feel like the Oreos here in China are still too sweet, which is crazy for me because I feel like they're not sweet enough. I mean, like, where's the sugar? It's actually not that crazy. They're still sweet, but I could definitely tell a difference right off the bat compared to the American Oreos and treats that I'd eat. And this doesn't just apply to Oreos. There are lots of different chocolates or even cake that is not as sweet here. Talk about the health benefits. That's so good for your body to reduce the amount of added sugar that you consume each day. Okay, so next are portions, which affects your calorie intake, right? Now going back to the example of Oreos, in addition to testing different prototypes of reduced sugar, they also try different packaging. And I noticed this as well when I first got here to China, is that when we went to the grocery store, I looked around and I saw Oreos, but I saw Oreos that were only in this small packaging. It's the same size of Oreo, but it only includes like 2, I believe, inside. I know that helps me so much to control how much I am eating versus the huge pack in America. Oh my gosh, my wife and I used to always only get the family size, which is extra big, and holy cow, I could go through that faster than you can imagine. Sorry, I got worked up there a little bit. The portions are usually smaller here, even with food, so it's a great thing. I noticed that the cup size, a large here, was very similar to a small, if maybe a medium in the US, which is pretty crazy, right? And on top of that, there are typically not free refills here. So when you're finished with your drink, you're actually finished. And that probably makes me even enjoy it that much more. I can drink it slower, enjoy it more, because I don't want to spend the extra money to get a refill. So when we do get fast food, we don't get it a whole lot, especially since I'm trying to transform my dad body into something amazing, I hope. But when we do get fast food, I try to comfort myself saying, hey, these portions are much smaller than the US. I mean, may not be the best rationale. I shouldn't go eat it every day or anything like that. But I mean, it helps me feel a little bit better. The next thing is soup and vegetables first. Something that kind of surprised me when I first got here to China is that whenever I'd go out to eat with my wife and my in-laws here, it's very common to have soup first, as well as vegetables and other healthy, nutritious items before actually eating rice. So everybody will be eating together, let's say, having a great time, talking, that type of a thing. We'll wait quite a bit until everyone's had soup, everyone's eaten, and then we'll be like, okay, it's time for 主食, which means like carbs, including rice and things like that. In a nutshell, having soup and other low-carb healthy items is so great to have at the beginning because it starts to fill you up, and it's also those nutritious, dense balanced foods. Another note is that the soup here is so very healthy. It doesn't have all this creamy stuff added like milk, but instead it's usually some type of broth or something that is very healthy. Next, let's talk about seafood. And I want to share with you the average seafood consumption per capita. For the US, it is 22 kg or 48.5 pounds. And for China, it is 38.5 kg or about 85 pounds. These are numbers per year, and isn't that just crazy? There is so much more seafood consumption here, which leads to a more nutritious diet and weight loss. Now let's talk about modes of transportation. This is a huge factor when it comes to maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Here in China, I do not even have a car. For the most part, I'm either walking or riding around an electric scooter. A funny example is that we have a post office not too far from where we live, but in America, I was so used to just driving everywhere. So naturally, my wife and I would hop onto the electric bike to head over to the post office. But whenever my father-in-law sees, he will definitely say something about it and will not be happy. He says, "Why aren't you just walking? It's so close. Walking is so good for your health." I'm like, well, okay, I can't disagree with him. He's got an excellent point. So whenever he sees us, we tend to walk. Actually, we've been walking more recently, but you know, sometimes it's just nice, the convenience of hopping on something that is faster, where you don't have to move your little legs. Anyway, that's a big factor that's caused by environment and the modes of transportation around you. I also noticed that there's just a lot of people outdoors. There are many parks, like this beautiful one you see here, and even at nighttime, there's these like dance groups of elderly people that get out and dance. There's this culture or environment of being outdoors and walking around. Now onto education, both education from the parents and raising up side, as well as the school education system. In general, parents here in China are big advocates for eating healthy. I noticed this immediately when we brought our kids here, and our parents here in China were not very happy when we saw us giving our kids snacks and treats all the time. So it really is rooted into the education system and how kids are brought up. They do not encourage snacking a lot here. And school is basically the same. My wife said that growing up here, they basically did not have any sugary desserts. Maybe they'll have a yogurt once in a while, but instead they'll focus on whole, delicious foods such as fruits and things like that. So next, I just want to touch on beauty standards. Here in Asia, it is very common for society to view beauty as thin. Overall, being overweight doesn't exactly fit the beauty standard here. I don't want to focus on that side of things, but there is that element that comes into play. So that's a wrap for the differences of living here in China with views on health, some of the environmental impacts, habits that are developed from a young age, as well as everyday choices here. If you found this video insightful, please leave a like and subscribe for more. And also feel free to leave a comment on what you'd like to see about health here in China or anything else. All right, until next time, take care, peace out.